Hey there everybody, and welcome to my first impression review of the new Honda CRV and CRV Hybrid. So the first thing you'll notice about the MK V CRV is the styling. It's a lot more aggressive than the MK IV it replaces. I particularly like the bold headlights and the chrome in the front grille. Also, the bonnet itself has got a few extra creases, but it has actually got a very dynamic and quite aggressive look to it. I will say, just going to wait for a train to go past. I will say you do also get full LED headlights, especially on this EX trim, which is top of the range. Now, as we come around to the side, there is a special badge I need you to see, which is this one here. This is actually what highlights the fact that this is the hybrid CRV. That's the only thing on the exterior that lets you know it's the hybrid. There's no kind of different grills or anything like you would get in the Hyundai Ioniq, for example, so it's just a badge to look out for. As you can see as well from the side profile, it does retain a lot of the shape of the MK IV until we get to the back, so if you want to follow me quickly. Mind your step, that's Hugh, my cameraman. So the first thing I'll mention is the taillights. They have got a new design to them. Now, some people criticise the MK IV for looking a little bit like the Volvo XC60. However, I will say they've kind of followed on again with the MK V, as the XC60 has got this very distinctive L light cluster on the rear, and so has the new CRV. Now, I will mention as well, being a Honda, and on this particular trim level, you do get a power tailgate as standard, as well as a reversing camera. You've got a huge 505 litre boot. I gotta say, it looks a lot bigger than it actually, says on paper. But being a Honda, you've got a low boot lip and a nice flat boot floor as well. And as you can see, I've got my camera equipment in there, and it's a very practical place indeed. Now, with this being the hybrid, you don't get a spare wheel underneath, because there is going to be a battery, of course, for that hybrid drivetrain, but you have got the tyre puncture repair kit, and that's as standard. Now, the 1.5 litre that I have drove, or I will be driving shortly, thanks to editing, did come with a full-size spare wheel. So as that's closing, we'll go around to the side. And again, being a Honda, you've got huge wide opening rear doors, and you have a lot of space here in the rear. Now, with again, this has been the EX trim, so you do get leather as standard, but it is an incredibly comfortable place to be. Hugh, my cameraman, which you can't see, he's actually 6'2", and even with the passenger seat fully pushed back, he had plenty of knee room and leg room and headroom as well. So something I will point out that I really do like on the CRV is at the bottom of the doors do cover the underside of the car, so if you are coming out of the car and you've been through any muddy puddles or anything, you're not going to get the back of your legs dirty. So sat here in the MK V CRV, you will find that the dashboard is actually a lot better than the MK IV. Interior quality has taken a step up and gone with the little digital display that was on top of the dashboard, and has been replaced by the main Honda style infotainment system. Now, I will say it's not the most intuitive to use, and cars such as any of those in the Volkswagen group will definitely be a lot clearer and easier to use, especially on the move. However, you do get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as standard, so that does actually help in terms of usability, particularly if you've got those types of mobile phones. I will say as well, you do get a digital dash behind the steering wheel. It's very much like what you get in the new Honda Civic. It's nice and clear, and being the hybrid model, you do get additional information in regards to kind of the battery regeneration as you're driving the car. You also get little digital displays on the outer sides as well. Now, if you get something like a normal CRV or a Honda Civic, it's kind of like an LED display, but they're actually digital on the hybrid system. On the right hand side, it lets you know what the petrol tank amount is left, and on the left hand side, it lets you know how much battery charge you've got as well. And as you kind of regenerate that battery, it shows you how it's charging. I do like as well, on this automatic version, there is no kind of manual gear knob, because you can only get it as an automatic with the hybrid, but there's also not a standard kind of automatic gear selector. You do get their new kind of button layout, which starts to drive at the bottom, neutral, you got reverse, and then park. And with this being the electric version or the hybrid version, you do get an EV button. You got the typical Honda Econ button with the little flower on there to let you know you're saving the planet, and also you do get Sport on here, which does help with the performance of the car. Again, being the new Honda, you do get an electric handbrake and an auto hold as well. Practicality has not been forgotten by Honda, so you've got deep door bins, but the big highlight is this central kind of cubby area. So if I lift up the armrest, you've got a little tray that slides forward, and I've got the key on there, and as you can see, it's blue to highlight the fact that it's a hybrid. But you can also remove this. Easier said than done, I will say. There you go. And you've got a huge area to store a lot of items. You've also got two USB charging points. You've got a 12-volt socket and a HDMI port as well. So the Honda have actually thought about the practicality of the new CRV. Now, if I have got any other kind of negatives in here, well, it would be the kind of, I'll say, faux wood trim that comes on here. It's yeah, not the best, and I would say if you go for it, go for the kind of metal or brushed metal effect that you can also get. But other than that, it's actually a very, very comfortable place to be, and visibility is very good. The A-pillars are not too thick, and visibility out of the rear is very good as well. So yeah, that's a nice place to be in the new CRV. And enough about the interior, let's take it out for a drive. So the first car you find me in is the 1.5 litre turbocharged petrol engine. It's mated to a 6-speed manual gearbox, and this particular version is 2-wheel drive. So with the engine, you've got around 170 brake horsepower and around 220 newton meters of torque, and I have to say it's got a nice bit of performance to it. Granted, it's not got the torquiness of the old 2.2 litre diesels, but then again, Honda are coming with the times and going completely all petrol or petrol hybrid. So this is a nice introduction into the new Mark V CRV, and so far things actually are very promising. So there's good visibility from around the car. This particular version is a 5-seater, and you've got nice big wing mirrors, so again helping you with that visibility. There's not much in the way of wind noise from them. That's actually a nice surprise to get from the car, but there is a little bit of tyre roar coming through into the cabin. But other than that, it's actually a very relaxing car to drive. The suspension and the dampening is set up pretty well. Sometimes at slow speed you can get some of the major potholes and manhole covers kind of intruding into the cabin, but other than that, it's actually a very relaxing car to drive. In terms of where I'm seated, well, I gotta say it's incredibly comfortable. This is the SE version, so this is one up from the base model S, and you get a heck of a lot of equipment as standard. You've got dual zone climate control, you've got things such as adaptive cruise control, rear camera as well. There's actually a very nice plethora of soft touch plastics within the cabin, and they've got this kind of faux stitching effect on them to give it a kind of premium leather feel, although whether or not it works is, well, it's up to you really. I don't think it works entirely well, but I have to say the actual quality of the interior is very good. You have got, however, a bit of wood trim in here, although it is a bit fake. And as much as we all like a little bit of wood, you can also get a metal effect as well. And I would probably say that kind of adds to a little bit more colour to the cabin rather than having the wood, and gives it a more modern effect. The wood would definitely suit those of perhaps a slightly older age, I'd say. But other than that, it's actually a very comfortable place to be. We have, however, got the same woes that you get from the infotainment system, as you would have seen in the Honda Civic Type R review that I've done, and it's a little bit slow. The graphics aren't as good as some cars, particularly those from the VAG group, but I have to say it's well, it's got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so that does give it some saving grace there. But other than that, it's a little bit slow, a little bit laggy. The screen itself, or the actual backing, looks quite big, but the actual screen itself is only about 7 inches, and it just looks quite small, particularly when you've got this big expansive dash in front of you. You have, however, got a lovely digital screen in between the fuel and the engine temperature gauge, and that is very nice and clear, and it does give you a lot of information. Of course, if you drive the hybrid version, which I will be doing later on today, you will get a lot more additional information in regards to where the power is going from the batteries to the motor to the generator and down to the wheels, etc. But I have to say, for the most part, A lot of information is there, and it is actually really nice and clear, and it's a little bit more civilized than the Civic Type R's version, so it is something that's feeding its way down onto all Hondas. So the Mark V CRV is a definite improvement over the Mark IV. It's bigger, you get bigger boot space, more interior space and passenger space in the back, and also the actual layout of the dashboard has improved again as well. I will say it's still a very comfortable car to drive, if not as dynamic as some of its rivals, and I do like the fact that Honda are taking the game to its rivals by going fully petrol and also petrol hybrid. Something I forgot to mention is that also a sweet spot with the CRV, and also a sweet spot with all Hondas, is the manual gearbox. It's a 6-speed, as you would expect, and it's got a lovely short shift to it, and it does actually feel quite sporty, if that is against the nature of the car, but it is a nice quick shift. However, if you want a more relaxing way of driving, you can go for the automatic version, which is a CVT, so we'll have to find out when we drive the hybrid if it's going to have some of those CVT foibles and tendencies that you will get from that transmission. However, I got to say, I am very much impressed with the Mark V. This is incredibly comfortable and has got a lot of equipment as standard. There are a few things I'm possibly kind of missing, but they do come up later on in the trim range, or higher up should I say, with things such as the sunroof and a few extra safety features, including also as well leather seats if you like that sort of thing. But yeah, it's a good improvement over the Mark IV, and looking forward to trying the hybrid out shortly. So driving the hybrid version of the CRV, the first thing you notice is how quiet it is at slow speed, and that's because being a hybrid, it will drive just purely under electric mode. However, when you push on with the speeds, you will hear a faint engine rumble coming through as that engine kicks in, but I will say it's not really that intrusive unless you put your foot down. The second thing I will say is that it feels a bit more comfortable in here with the suspension, and I think that's because of having the batteries for that hybrid drivetrain. It just doesn't feel as rolly as the petrol version that I drove earlier, but that's to say that actually wasn't as rolly either. This just feels a bit more compliant and a bit more comfortable at speed. And of course, with this being the EX version, you're going to get a lot more standard equipment. So we've got heated leather seats, we've got blind spot monitoring, and we've even got a head-up display, which I do like, a little feature where you can actually move where the head-up display is depending on your line of sight. So if you're not 5'7" tall and 5'7" wide and you're a little bit taller, you can actually set it so you can see it whilst driving. So it is quite a nice little feature, and Honda has thought about all different sizes and types of drivers out there. But I have to say, I am very much impressed with the hybrid system on the CRV, and it's really nice to see how Honda are coming up with the times, even though they've been doing hybrids for, well, about 20 years or so now. However, I'm still just waiting, because I'm driving on a dual carriageway, just to see what kind of economy I can get out of this hybrid system. However, with this being a road that I'm not quite used to, it could just vary from what Honda claim. So as mentioned on the outside, the only way to differentiate the hybrid version from the standard CRV is a little hybrid badge that you'll see throughout the outside of the bodywork. On the inside, the main kind of difference you'll see is actually on the digital display, and what you get is the little kind of, well, it's a bit kind of confusing to begin with, the little digital readout that shows you where the power is going in regards to the battery, the motor, through to the wheels. And with this being the all-wheel drive version, you'll know then that the power is going to go to all four wheels if it needs that grip. For the most part though, this will be a two-wheel drive car, and it will send most of that power straight to the front wheels, and only send the then turn right. So I just follow in the sat-nav, and it will send any additional power to the other wheels if it's needed and if they lose any kind of traction. Gearbox wise, with the hybrid CRV, you do get a CVT transmission. Now, don't recoil in horror, it's actually a pretty good gearbox. Yes, if you do put your foot down, you do get a bit of that whine from the gearbox and engine note coming into the cabin, but it's not as bad as other CVTs I've driven. If anything, the biggest kind of intrusion into the cabin is just a bit more road noise than usual. And even with the large wing mirrors, you don't actually get that much wind noise, so it is very good in terms of sound deadening. Now, you might be noticing that there are a couple of paddles behind the steering wheel. These are not for changing gear, these are actually for the regenerative braking. I hate saying that word. So just like the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV, what you have is got a plus and a minus. So the minus is on the left and the plus is on the right. And if you hit the minus one, you get a couple of little arrows next to the gear selector on the display to let you know about the regenerative braking. So you've got 4 stages, and you literally 1, 2, 3, 4. As soon as you take your foot off the accelerator, it will actually start braking for you. It's not as abrupt as something like a Nissan Leaf's e-pedal, but once you get used to it, you can actually kind of predict any stoppages or anything, or any junctions you got coming up to, and will let the car slow itself down. Now, I'm not going to demonstrate that at the moment because I've got a flipping big truck behind me, so I don't want him crashing into the back of this 35 grand Honda. But it is a nice intuitive system. However, I do like the fact that if you've got paddles on there, you expect to change gear with them and not just do the regen braking. But it's a nice little feature, and if you have had a Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV in the past, well, nobody likes change, do they? So what's my verdict on this first impression drive of the new CRV and CRV hybrid? Well, it's definitely an improvement over the Mark IV. It looks a lot better, it's a lot more spacious, and you've got a bigger boot. If you have got a Mark IV CRV, you're going to be very happy going straight into the Mark V. I will mention that having that hybrid drivetrain does now help anyone who's kind of new into the market and looking at being a little bit more frugal with a hybrid car. And I would definitely consider it, especially as you've got cars like the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV, which if you go for the top spec is a lot more expensive than this CRV. So everyone, I hope you've enjoyed my first impression review of the Honda CRV and new CRV hybrid. As always, hit that like button. If you've got any questions or queries, put them down in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that little bell notifications icon to let you know when AutoBears brings out a new video. Of course, as well, I'm on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter, and don't forget to follow on there for additional content and also live videos. So again, guys, any questions or queries, put them in the comments below, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.